Good morning. My name is Shantal Myers. I will be walking you through year-end prep class this morning. We're going to spend the next couple hours just walking through how to prepare to close payroll, how to close payroll, walk through some reporting requirements or recommendations in the general ledger. We're also going to go through 1099 overview. If you were looking to get a little bit more in depth and need hand-holding, if you will, I do have a lot of new users on the call. We will be having additional classes in January. I will show you later how to sign up for those, where we're going to cover more in depth on W-2 preparation and execution, 1099, walking that through all the way to the end, those types of things. So if you need additional information there, just sign up for those classes. And again, I will show you at the end of the call how you can sign up for those classes. Hopefully everybody can see my screen. For some reason, I can't see what you see, which is very weird. There is a chat box, question box. I will be monitoring that throughout this session. I am the only person monitoring that, so if I don't get to that right away, please bear with me. But would anybody mind chiming in and letting me know if you can see my screen? It has a PowerPoint presentation on it with Sage in the background, just because I can't see it. I can't see what you're seeing. Okay, good. Thanks, guys. Awesome. Appreciate it. So this handout, if you missed it, this handout is in the meeting window. So if you guys want to drop that, in a download file, that way you have it, that would be awesome. You can follow along. I will be toggling back and forth between the PowerPoint presentation and Sage. So if you don't know who I am, like I said, I'm Shantal Myers. I'm a Sage consultant. I've been was a user for 10 years, and I've been consulting going on 9 years. So I've handled this class the last couple of years for ETHOSystems. So not much has changed, to be honest with you. There is some, questions, discussions about the big, beautiful bill act, those types of things that we'll get into later. Unfortunately, it's not a lot of information coming out from Sage. So we will get into that today though. But if you've been, you're a seasoned vet, you've been in Sage for a long time, not a lot has changed with the close process. So, but we will go through that and those little small changes today. So like I said, today, this is the agenda. We're going to prepare for payroll close and actually walk through the close process, prepare for the general ledger close. We're going to walk through the process for advancing to the fiscal year. We're using December 31st. Prepare for processing 1099s. And also, if I have any Canadian clients on the call, we're going to be, it's the same process, just different forms for the Canadian version. There will be available resources that I'm going to give you guys, all types of resources for year-end help. Sage has a great checklist, things like that, that I'll be showing you guys how to access along with today's call. And then obviously our January sessions that we're going to have available to users, it's going to be, you'll be set. So don't worry. One important note, very, very important. I was going to make it red, but you must have access to the database administration tool, usually housed on your server, in order to perform general ledger and payroll archives, back up the company, things like that, that I will recommend. You should have access to that tool anyways. Before you do that, you also want to make sure you have enough space to perform, archives or, backups, things like that. That's really important, especially we don't, during year end, we don't want to get locked out of the system because we don't have space. The new update to Sage with the new payroll tax tables for 2026 should be released today or tomorrow, sometime this week. Hopefully we'll see that as soon as ETHOSystems gets that. Pam is going to update the system, and we're going to check out, the changes, the W-2 changes for the Big Beautiful Bill Act, all of that, and there'll be some, communication coming out from ETHOSystems as soon as we know. You guys will know, and then we'll also hold your hand through the process, whatever we need to do during our January classes. Unfortunately, we don't know yet because the release is not out yet. And I don't know if anybody took Sage's class, but I did for year end, and they said, we don't know. So it wasn't really helpful. So if you're new to Sage 100 Contractor, I do have a lot of new users on the call. They have a newer option in the last couple of years for closing the payroll. Let's say now you can have multi-year payroll in Sage, meaning you would have multiple years open in Sage 100 Contractor for payroll. So it gives users the option to close it without archiving. We used to have to archive payroll back in the day. Yes, Sabrina, this is being recorded. Sorry, I might like glance at chat, see a question, and respond. I am recording this session. You will get a copy of it at the end. If you need to drop off, I don't want you to, because you can ask questions. If you do have questions, make sure you put them in chat. But this is being recorded, so other users can access it, or you can access it at the end. Anyways, back to our presentation. Gives users option to close payroll without archiving. It resets within your live company all employee quarter year-to-date information. And what that means is in the employee profiles, I don't know if anybody's ever looked at the profile in depth, but on the calculations tab, all the way to the right, there's quarter information and year-to-date information. So when you close the payroll in Sage versus archiving, it removes this information in preparation for the new calendar year. The records remain in the existing database. Some reports in the software are updated for you to run payroll. It says include prior payroll year. Some reports, you can't run them all, but some of them have that. The year on the check is what is going to determine what quarter and year that transaction falls into. It has nothing to do with the period start, period end date. It's the check date that will drive the year that it falls into. If you choose to close payroll versus archiving, within your live database, you can add, edit, and void payroll records in the closed year. That is immediately preceding your current payroll year. What that means is if I need to change something for 2025 and I've already closed payroll, closed, not archived, but closed, I can do that. I can change the 2025 payroll record if I needed to do that. If I have 24, 25, 26 payroll records in my software, I won't be able to change 24, but I can change 25, and then obviously 26. The 2024 records in my system would become read-only. There isn't a limit as far as, where we know now that you can have as many payroll years as you want in your system. Obviously, we don't want that information in there if it's bogging down our software, which we're going to get into. After the call today, you do need to decide yourself or as a team, are we going to close payroll or are we going to archive payroll? You have to make a decision. You have to do one or the other. If you're running payroll in Sage, it's not an option. Even if you are, you have a third-party processor and you're putting your records into Sage, you still want to close payroll. Do we have any questions about that so far? No questions in chat. Okay, I'll keep monitoring chat. So what are the pros and cons, closing versus archiving? Close pros and cons, you have to be in at least version 24.2 or later. How do you know what version you're in? Some people don't know. You can check Sage. Within Sage, you can go to Home and Resources, About Sage 100 Contractor, and here in the middle, this first line, I need more coffee, tells you what version you're on. 27.2.81, I'm greater than 24.2, so I can close. It's a very easy process. It literally, can take a minute to close payroll. It's super easy. Payroll records remain in the current database. So if we have a workman's comp audit that runs year over year, sometimes maybe our policy ends in June, and then we need that to access that data. If we leave the payroll records in our live company by closing, it's very easy to pull those workman's compensation reports out. I don't have to switch databases to get the other half of the year out. So that's nice. That's what we recommend, is that you do close payroll. And then once the audit is complete, then you archive payroll, because you no longer need those records unless you want them. Another pro is you can fix payroll in the existing system if you find an error. Like I said, you can jump in and change 2025 even after you've closed it. W-2s and fourth quarter reporting can be done in the same database. So that means you're going to be, walking through that in your live company. You don't have to log into the archive and do that, process those records. The downfall is that it does increase the size of your database, potentially on how many records that you have, maybe slowing down the system. Another issue that may come up is that you cannot remove DNU payroll calculations. DNUs do not use. So if we close payroll and we have DNUs, we would not be able to remove them from the system. But you can delete employee records if they haven't been used in payroll for the current year. So those are the pros and cons of closing. Archiving, which is an option for you. All payroll records are removed from the system and a new database is created. That's a pro. You can also delete unwanted employees and records and payroll calculations. The con is you must log out and log into the archive to process, the W-2s, fourth quarter reporting. And then sometimes it's a very, very lengthy process depending on the size of your database. So after this call, I do want everybody on the call to decide, what are we going to do? Like I said, even if you're outsourcing payroll and you're putting it into Sage, you still need to close or archive. I had a question come in, who would ever want to delete employee records? So you wouldn't be deleting the records because you can't do that. What this means is that if an employee no longer works for your company and you don't want them in the database, they don't need to be there. When you archive, those employee records get moved to an archive database. So they're no longer, like if they weren't active in your live company, you could delete the employee. Another option is inactivating the employee. I have seen sometimes clients inactivate employees. So that's another option for you too. Another question, so if we want to leave 2 years open at a time, can we archive at a later time? For example, 24, 25, next year, archive 24. Yes, absolutely, you can do that. Yep, you can archive payroll anytime you want after the payroll year and you close it. Any more questions about archiving versus closing? Okay, we're going to get into preparing to close the payroll year. I also wanted to mention I might be going through things rather quickly. Usually I have 2 days to do this, 2 hours, so 4 hours, and now it's cut in half. So I'm going to try to cover things as in depth as possible, but the processes of 1099s and W-2s, that's no longer going to be covered in this class. That's going to be in the January sessions. So just FYI, if you're looking for that, that will be done in January. So you must close or archive payroll, like I said, before entering and computing time cards. Well, not entering, but it's a good best practice. Computing time cards for the new calendar year. So timing is very important. So we have to do one or the other before we start with our 2026 paycheck. So thinking about, and it doesn't matter if the time was worked in 25, it matters when it was paid, when it's going to be paid. That's all that matters. You want to make sure that you have your bonus checks printed, your owner health insurance benefit taken care of. You want to make sure, I did put a solution ID. What that means is that you can highlight the solution ID. That is an article in Sage knowledge base. So if you pop over to your home and resources, Sage support knowledge base, and just copy and paste in the solution ID, hit enter, it will come up with what I want you to do, or what this was displaying the owner health insurance benefit on the W-2 and how to do it. So I put those knowledge base articles in the PowerPoint presentation for you guys if I think it's important that you know. You want to create a secure year-end folder to house all the closing reports if that's something that you guys keep. You're also going to need to decide, are you going to be e-filing with Atrix? You can register for e-filing using this link. If not, do you need to order forms? Are you guys going to handle those year-end filings yourself, printing out pieces of paper? There's the solution ID here. If you plug that into knowledge base, it tells you what paper you need to order for all the forms. It is not the Office Max 3-part form that prints on duplicate pages. So if you're wanting to print on paper, you like to do that still, take the solution ID, plug it into knowledge base, and it'll tell you what paper to order or what to buy. If your employees will get electronic W-2s, make sure that you have your consent on file. You can offer that to your employees now. So you would go to 541 electronic W-2 consent. So 541 electronic W-2 consent right here. So if you click select employees, it will pop open a list of employees. Unfortunately, there's not a select all. I wish there was, but there's not. So you can check all 300 of your employees and then click OK. And then you can print the form so that your employees can elect to receive their W-2 electronically. It's kind of nice. Once you have the form back, you're going to want to go to 539 and update the, or excuse me, not update. You're going to go to 521, and you're going to want to check under compensation that you have the consent for electronic W-2. If you have the piece of paper signed in your possession, go ahead and check this so that when you process the W-2s out of Sage, it sees that you have that consent on hand and will send that electronically. If you are responsible or required, if you have over 50 employees for the Affordable Health Care Act, there is a solution ID here. It comes up with a video that'll walk you through exactly how to prepare the ACA information that is on the employee's profile on the ACA tab. That is a painful process, so if you do have a third party that will do it for you, I would have them do that if they can. Like the health insurance company, sometimes they'll do that, or your provider. You want to ensure all the payroll calculations are set up properly to report on the W-2. And 521 retirement plan, third-party sick pay boxes are checked. Again, this is in preparation to close the payroll. What all of this means is that in the employee profile underneath the compensation tab, there are other two boxes here, retirement plan and third-party sick pay. If those are applicable, make sure you check the boxes so that your W-2 is correct. The W-2 box that I was referring to is on 531 payroll calculations. So for instance, health insurance, well, any of them. The health insurance down here where it says reporting, what W-2 box does it go into, and then what is the code. If you're not sure, you can go to help about this window. You can type in help W-2 box. About W-2 box and W-2 codes in payroll calculations. It will tell you, the elective deferral under the section 401k, that is box 12, code D, right? So this kind of walks you through employer sponsored health coverage is DD. It walks you through the code and the box that you have to put that information into. I have questions coming in, but I'm just going to finish with this slide and then I will address the questions in the chat. You want to finalize 2025 payroll, print and post all payroll checks. Very important, right, for 2025. Then you also want to make sure your employee statuses are clean. Open up 521. If you want to remove any employees, they must have quit, laid off, terminated, or deceased. There's also a new option for inactive. Removing inactive. And so what that means is in the employee profile here, the status changes here to make an employee inactive, edit, inactivate record, and in the bottom right, they become inactive. Nobody will see them anymore on any lists or anything like that. So that's what those mean. If you're going to be archiving, you'll want to make sure that those are up to date in case you want to remove the records from the live environment and the employee and put them in the archive company. It's kind of cut off here. You also want to make sure that your company information in 7.1 is correct. It does autofill the tax forms. So what that means is in 7.1 company information, you have your company name. If you have a new address, you've moved. Things like that, you want to make sure that, oh no, okay, that this information here on the general information tab is correct, your tax ID number, your all of that information here. ACA code. Okay. So that is preparing to close. We're going to talk more about preparing to close, but I'm going to pause for a second and answer these questions. So for the last payroll of the year, if my last period is December 28th through January 3rd and payday is January 8th, would I close after that one? No. Your check date is January 8th. That will be your #1 payroll of 2026. So you need to close after the one that's prior to that, Erin. So the check date, the last check date of 2025, that's in December, you need to close then and update your system. Is the email consent available in Canada for T4s? Yes, Teresa, I believe it is. I will double check for you. Right now I'm presenting the United States version, but I will make myself a note and shoot you an email. Can we put ACA information into a spreadsheet to upload into the system? There is not an upload feature of Sage. So no, unfortunately. Mary Ellen, that is not an option. I'm not sure if our data load people or data fix people, ETHOSystems could do that or not. I'm not sure. I can see if that's an option for you. Why would you want to inactivate with employee status? To use the inactive with employee status. So some companies will inactivate employees just because they're never going to work there. They'll use the statuses because the person is rehirable, or if they are inactive, I've seen some cases where they make them inactive, so they're not visible. They're no longer able to be rehired. And then when they do an archive, they remove all inactives. And so that means that that person's profile is no longer in your active environment. In order to see it, you have to, you know, open up and pop open an archive database. You can always reactivate them and if they're inactive. When should we install the update coming out this week with new tax tables for 2026, before or after our final payroll? So we're going to get into exactly the timing of that. It's really important that that timing is correct to do that. How can we accumulate this as the year progresses for 2026? Oh, Marilyn, you can book a session with me, but I will show you on the employee profile. Your team can be you or your team, whoever is responsible for, if I'm assuming you're talking about ACA here, there's a month, you know, every column is a month, represents a month. And then as it goes along, so say they got hired in January, we're just assuming they're full-time, Sage fills it in for you. But if they got terminated, you know, in July, we could mark that they're no longer with us. And then obviously the code, and then the Sage kind of just pushes that out for the rest of the year. Hopefully that makes sense. And if they got vice versa, if they got hired, during May, then they became full-time, Sage will push that out for the rest of the year. So it's kind of nice that it just autofills for you for the rest of the year. Hopefully that answers your question. The last one here before we move on. So we pay weekly. So one check date will be 12/26. And then if we run payroll for 12/21 through 12/27, the check date is 1/2, then we would close payroll before running that payroll. That is correct. You are going to complete 12/26. That is your last payroll of 2025, right? That will be done. Then you're going to walk through the close steps that we're going to go through. You're going to update Sage to the new version, and then you will close payroll. We're going to go through that right now. I don't want it to be confusing. And then you will advance to 2026 and run your January 2nd payroll, Sabrina. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit. Some other steps to prepare to close payroll. You definitely want to run a payroll audit. If you're not running a payroll audit at the end of every payroll, you should be. If you run it now and you have a million audit errors, you're going to have, you might want to start taking care of that right now. It's best practice to run it at the end of every payroll, 5, 3, 7 payroll audit. A good idea is, if you're following this payroll flow, to drop payroll audit into your workflow. Make sure that that's done at the end of every payroll. Payroll audit, then you click audit. So I have audit errors. It says no audit errors found, but I have unposted payroll records and a quarter number check date mismatch, and no checks are found in the future year. Do I want to look at the report? Of course I do. I got to do some finagling with my printer so it doesn't bog it down, and then I'll preview the report to my screen. So I have audit errors. I have unposted payroll records. That means that I processed payroll, I final computed, but I didn't go as far as posting it. So I definitely want to make sure all of my records are posted. That is definitely a requirement, especially for 2025, because I need them in my financial statements. And then the quarter number does not match the check date on record 16. Those are a very easy fix. So I'll close all this down. I'm going to go to payroll records. It said record 16. It's telling me that the quarter and the check date do not match. That's a mismatch. Maybe I fat fingered this because Sage autofills it, right? Sage autofills it from the check date. So I will just update this to 2, because that is in quarter 2, and save. The other thing I need to do is post payroll to the general ledger, because I have a bunch of unposted payroll. So I'm going to go ahead and select my payroll checking, and I'm just going to click post payroll to the general ledger. 2 records. Why are there only 2? They're computed. Oh, they don't have check date. They don't have check numbers. Hello. So I'm looking at the records that are not posted. I go to computed. The check numbers are 0. That's interesting. Maybe we didn't assign check numbers, right? So I'm going to trick the system and assign check numbers so that I can post the payroll. I probably shouldn't have done that. This system, for some reason, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to go back and run my payroll audit. I will have unposted payroll. Another thing you can do is you can click repair some audit discrepancies. Sage will repair that audit error by itself. Especially if you do hand computed checks, things like that, you definitely want to be repairing those. So I'm going to audit again. My quarter date mismatch should no longer be there. That's one I fixed. And then I should be posting payroll to the general ledger. The system is just running very, very, very slow. So I don't want to bog you guys down with that. Just know that you should do that. And then it should be a clean audit. You should have nothing there when you go to close. Actually, I probably should. Sorry, I should have taken care of this before. My bad. Okay, let me just do it. I'm going to assign check numbers and post that payroll. And while we're waiting, does everybody on the call have a clean audit? Did everybody run it, every payroll? Of course, everybody does, right? Okay, Mary Ellen runs it quarterly. That's fine to run it quarterly. I mean, if you're making monthly tax deposits and the payroll is wrong for the quarter, I mean, you'll at least catch it before you file, but then you might have some penalties. Oh, lovely. Okay. Let's run our audit. I didn't post. I thought I did. This is not going well. There we go. Okay, while that is running, because that's going to take forever, we're going to move on. We'll come back to that. Some reports that you should be running using the paycheck date, not the check ending date, is 5/1/3/21 payroll reports. This is to reconcile your payroll reports to the tax returns. So I tell you in here, and this is directly from Sage, how to reconcile these reports. It's important that you do it quarterly for the quarterly ones, things like that. If you're going to be archiving, you're going to want to run a records count before you archive. And how you do that is you go to 522, payroll records, file count, and then you're going to want to take note of the count. What that does is count the number of payroll records within 522. The reason why you want to do that is because you want to double check that all the records were moved over during an archive process. So After you archive, you'll do the same thing. You'll go back to 522, file count, and make sure that it's the same number of records that before and after you archived, just as a double check. And then another report that you want to run is 51241 payroll check register totals report. So take note of these reports. I would definitely make sure you have a clean audit. You know, make sure all of your paychecks are done for 2025. Make sure your audit is clean. Run your reports. At this point, we haven't closed yet. Okay, so finish payroll, run the audits, run your reports. It's kind of what I went through here. When your payroll is complete and you run your final audits, run your reports prior to closing the payroll, because some of the reports you're not going to be able to run. So you want to make sure you run them before. Some reports now show include prior year checkbox. So these reports show prior year checkbox. So we've got up to this point where we've closed the payroll, we've run our reports. Now we want to back up the company using the database administration tool. Hopefully you all have access to that tool. This is still running. This is the database administration tool that's on your server. Tune up, backup, restore, backup companies, select your company, click create backup. Very simple. Next, you want to install the year-end update. That's going to come out today or tomorrow, sometime this week. So it's important that you do it in this order. The update may impact the payroll close. So you don't want to have already closed payroll. You don't want to do that yet. You just want to complete the payroll. The update may impact payroll close processes. So do this before you close or archive and run any tax forms or filings. So does anybody have any questions about the steps? We are completing 2025 payroll. We're running all of our reports. We're going to back up the company, install the update. The update is coming out today or tomorrow, hopefully. So obviously, if your payroll isn't done for 2025, you're not going to install the update until you're done. So complete the payroll for 2025 first. Does anybody have any questions about that so far? No questions. Okay. This is still running. I knew I should not have done that. Very, very, very bad. I'm going to have to close Sage and reopen it because it just gets hung up on reports for some reason in my sandbox environment. So after we install the year-end update and before we close, we're going to do that before we close, it's installed, then we're going to go to 538 with admin access. You don't need exclusive access, meaning other people can be in. Click close payroll year. This is if you choose to close the payroll year. This is the screen it's on, 538. Important, you need to close the payroll year prior to computing payroll records that will be printed next year. So it's giving you a warning. So it also gives you another warning. You're about to close payroll for the calendar year. Do you want to continue? Payroll close complete. Do you see how quick that was? You're now ready to process payroll for 2026. Reminder, be sure to update payroll calculation employees with the new rates and maxes for 2026, which I'm going to show you guys how to do that here in a minute. I did also want to point out that in that payroll close year, there is a year-end guide. So it is a Sage PDF document. You can download that. It walks you through kind of exactly what we're walking through right now from Sage. Tells you exactly what I'm telling you. Then you can download that right now. Just clicking on 538 is not going to close your year. There's another way to download it too that I'll show you if you don't feel comfortable doing that. So let me pause for a moment and answer some questions. We outsource our IT and they supposedly check for Sage updates nightly. How do we check to make sure the pending update is installed? So you're able to go to Home and Resources, About Sage 100 Contractor. This tells you the new version you're on. The new version is 27.3. Also, this payroll tax file release should say 2026. That's going to tell you that you're on the new 2026 tax tables. Hopefully that answered your question, Pam. I have another question coming in. Hi, I'm confused. Do we install the year-end update before closing payroll? Yes. The reason why is because the update that Sage pushes out may impact the payroll close process. And if you download Sage Checklist, which I'll show you how to do, it also tells you to install the update before you click close, because the update may impact that close process and what Sage does. Does that clear it up, Camille? I have another question. If we still have payroll to do for 2025 and updates comes out today, do we wait until all the payroll is done for 2025? Or can we do it prior? Yeah, so write it down. Steps 1 is to complete the payroll for 2025, meaning you have no more checks to print and you have a clean audit. So payroll complete 2025, have a clean audit. Print out your reports. Step 3. Back up the company, install the update, and then close payroll. Close, click close in 538. So you need to make sure 2025 is complete. You have no audit errors. We're not printing any more 2025 checks. Print your reports, back up the company, install the update, then close payroll. Then you can move on to 2026. Anybody have, is that clear, or should I, any questions about that? If you printed this out, you can make a little note, 1, right, 2, and then 3, 4, and 5. There's also a Sage checklist. Like I said, I'll show you. It's a check with check boxes that walks you through this exact same process. Is it the end of the world if you mess up? No. It's just that your close, when you close, it might not close how it was supposed to. I don't really know what the impact is. If you could just follow those steps and complete the payroll, run your reports, back up, install, update, and then close, that's what we need to do. Okay. So when you close payroll, you are then going to want to go into and update federal, state, local payroll calcs in 531 with new rates, new maxes. So there are some changes for 2026. We're going to walk through how to do that. So 531 payroll calculations. Calculation number 1 is Social Security. That is changing to $184,500. So you're gonna put 184,500 in here. Options, save and update, update max only. I would do all employees with this calculation. Why would I not just do current? Because you may rehire somebody and you want them to have the right rate. So all employees, and all employees with this calculation will be updated. Yes. And this is thinking I'm in 2025 because my general ledger is in 2025 still, but I want to save that. I'm just going to bypass that notice. So now my Social Security is the correct rate. So Social Security is updated. You want to make sure you update the employee and the employer side, both of them. Uh, 401k has been updated. That max is updated. It's 24,500 with an $8,000 catch-up for 50-year-olds, and then there's a super catch-up of 11,250 for 60 to 63-year-olds. So there's a new mandatory Roth catch-up as well. I think I just Googled that. Mandatory Roth catch-up, if an employee's prior wages from the employer sponsoring plan were over 150,000, their catch-up contributions must be made on a post-tax Roth basis. So we'll see if Sage comes out with an update for that, or if that's something that we're going to have to do there. Another thing is your unemployment rates. Typically, you're going to have new unemployment rates during this time. So before you process your 2026 payroll, you're going to want to make sure that you update your payroll unemployment calculation. You should have a new rate potentially. And if there's a new default max, and then again, push it out to all of the employees, you'll update default rate and max all employees. I also added a link to the irs.gov where you can look up the new maxes for yourself if you need to. You do want to adjust vacation sick accruals if leftovers don't carry forward. Adjust wage garnishments. So what that means is in the employee profile, if they have a garnishment, you're going to want to update the max here. If that changes for this new calendar year, excuse me, and vacation and sick here. So Sage is going to close it out to carry forward, you know, and have the available amount. If that is not correct for your employees, you're going to have to manually update it. Then the next step is to run your W-2s and fourth quarter reports. We're going to be covering that whole entire process and what that looks like in our January classes. So if you need help hand-holding further direction on W-2 processes, sign up for the January classes, our ETHOSystems website. If you go to ETHOSystems.com, webinars, events and webinars, and scroll down to our New Year's party. We're going to be having, it's a lab. We're going to walk you through how to do it. If you need additional help, we'll have one-on-ones. We'll have side classes going on at the same time. So you can sign up for those classes if you need further assistance for the W-2s. I also put a little note in here. If you are a biweekly payer, normally we have 26 pay periods. There's going to be 27 potentially in 2026. So if your payroll are set up to divide by 26, you know, times 12, whatever it is, and then divide by 26, you might have to turn that off the last calculation of the year, the first one, because there potentially maybe 27 pay periods for you in going into 2026. So only happens like every 10 to 11 years I read, but just FYI, check that out and see how many payroll runs you're going to have for 2020, for 2026, that you may be impacted by that. And what we've all been waiting for, and this is going to be anticlimactic. So the one big beautiful bill act overtime, this is from Sage and their community hub. I copied and pasted it. So version 27.3, that's the year-end version that's going to come out. They're targeting this week. They're going to announce it in the community hub. If you don't know what that is, I'm going to show you. This is, they're saying we've asked, we had people asking questions. The one big beautiful bill act will not impact the format of the 2025 W-2 form. Will not. The Internal Revenue Service has confirmed the existing forms and withholding tables will remain unchanged for the 2025 tax year. Overtime reporting for the entire 2025 calendar year will be included in the year-end release 27.3. No additional action will be required on your part. No custom reports or custom queries are going to be needed. This is direct from Sage. This is all I know. Like I said, we're going to get ETHOSystems. We'll get the copy of Sage, the new version 27.3. We will install it. Pam will review it, and there'll be some communication coming out from our office to you guys regarding steps that need to be taken if we know of any, or we'll be discussing those during the January classes. But this is all we have from Sage. And like I said, if you took Sage's year-end class, this is exactly what they said. We don't know. They did put this footnote on though. If you paid qualified overtime to employees, 1 under semi-monthly or monthly payroll periods, or 2 using piece pay, you'll have to determine and enter the amount of the qualified overtime compensation manually for each payroll record where it applies. The year-end update will include a new field in the 522 payroll record window to account for qualified overtime information. So this was a footnote to this publication in the community hub. Where can you find the community hub checklists, things like that for payroll? The last page of this PowerPoint presentation has a link to Sage City year-end. This is the hub. It's going to take you to this website. There's frequently asked questions over here. There's checklists on this side. So there's a timeline, exactly what we went through on how you have to do what you have to do. I don't know why that came up like that. Payroll, there's payroll checklist. I'm gonna put this into a website here. So timeline for year-end tasks tells you exactly how to do it. Do you see it says install the year-end update, then close the payroll year in that order? There's a timeline. There are payroll checklists. You can download the checklist. There's a US checklist and a Canadian checklist that walks you through exactly the steps that you need to perform. It also goes into vendor 1099 prep, general ledger, archiving the fiscal year. US version, Canadian version. I'm going to pause for some questions. How do I know if I've paid qualified overtime to employees? I do not know. I need to read the big, beautiful bill act and understand exactly what qualifies for exemption and what doesn't. I know that that's very involved. So Maria, once I get that information, I can send that to you. Also, during our January classes, we're going to know more about what that looks like, because Sage will come out with their information. You know, there'll be more information coming out from the government, things like that. So where can we access the new 27.3 version with the tax rates once it comes out? So Sage, if you are the authorized user per Sage, you should get an email. Actually, I don't think they send out emails. They push in this message. Oh, updates for Sage. Updates on Sage. There's a message here. They'll let you know that the update is available. Okay, that was just that Community Hub communication, but there will be, that's interesting, a message that pops in that says it's available. Also, when you log into Sage, if you have Sage Advisor installed on your server or your system, there's going to be a pop-up down here that says there's a new version of Sage available. If you do not have any of that, you don't see any communication in this week regarding an update, and you are ready to proceed with the update, shoot support@ethosystems.com an email, and we will make sure that you have that update. As long as you are up to date with your Sage subscription, we can send you that update. Is that okay, Erin? You're welcome. So that's all I was going to talk about for payroll. I do not have any more information, or there's nothing else that I need to talk about with regards to preparing for payroll, the order in which you need to do things. Like I said, we're going to go through how to process W-2s during our January classes. This class is meant to get you through to the end of the year and prepare for year-end close, W-2s, things like that. So then we're going to switch gears and move into the general ledger if nobody has any payroll questions. I have some questions coming in. What version of Sage do we have to be on before the year-end update is done? You don't have to be on any year. I mean, obviously you have, whatever year you're on is fine. When you update Sage, say you're 5 versions behind, as long as you're on this new version and you're not like in before, on the version 2019, you should be fine with just skipping directly to the new version of Sage. Camille, do you know what version you're on? 521, does a vacation carry forward automatically? Get moved to vacation available? Yes. Is it okay to update the UI calculations before closing payroll? As long as you're not computing payroll with it, Prudence. I mean, if you are done with 2025 payroll completely and you're not going to be computing any more records to pick up that new rate, I think that's fine. And you're not archiving. If you're planning on closing, then that will remain in the system. Okay. Yeah, Camille, you're fine. You can jump from that version that you're on to the new version. OHIB, does it have to be run separate? I'm not clear on that, Sabrina. What do you mean? Does it need to be run separate? You do have to put in a separate payroll record for that, yes, if that's what you're talking about. If you look up that knowledge base article that I sent, it tells you exactly how to create that record. If you have any questions, you can always book a session. Cool. So no more questions about payroll. We're going to move on to closing the general ledger, best practices for prepping for year end. Like I said, if you need help, you just want somebody to watch you, whatever the case may be, sign up for our classes. We have January 6th, the 9th, and then we have the 16th for folks who just did not complete it and they're still stuck. Those, we're going to be available for you guys too. Okay, so we are going to switch gears then. No more questions coming in. So preparing to close a general ledger. If you are one that doesn't print out paper, you want to house all of your folders or your files, your reports for year end in a file. Just everybody knows that probably on this call. You don't have to archive your records prior to moving to payroll 1 of the next fiscal year. So like right now, December 16th, I could have 2026 open for January. We're going to walk through how to do that. So advancing from period 11 to period 12 in your current fiscal year will automatically open up 1 of the next fiscal year. So if you've already advanced to period 12, that's your default. 1 is already open of 2026. When you advance to period 1 as your default, 2 through 12 will open up as long as you have a clean audit. So you may look at the period management function and say, where's the rest of my 2026? Well, it's not going to show up until January is your default. You can have multiple years of data open and you can choose to archive as often as you like. I worked in Sage for many years. I had 4 years open at one time just because I like to run trend reports, things like that. You want to have a clean system so you don't, when you're running reports, say I want to run a balance sheet. I've got to remember not to run a report in a system because we will be stuck. If I'm running a report and the period drop down box, if that has got all the way back to 2020 available here, I probably want to archive 2020, 2021, 22, maybe 23. I would probably archive all of those years. And you have to do them individually, and it archives the oldest fiscal year first. It just makes a copy of the company, removes that year of data. It doesn't remove anything that's active. Any active jobs, any active records for those jobs, those are not going to be removed, and puts them in a separate archive database that you can access here. Change company /access, show archives. Then you just pop into that file and run the report or whatever it is you need to run. Sorry, I'm getting over a cold and I have this lingering cough. So bad. So you want to complete the entry of all transactions and corrections for the oldest fiscal year. This is prior to archiving. Tax adjustments, our CPA will send us year-end tax adjustments. You want to make sure that those are posted and clear up any audit errors in the general ledger. We'll walk through how to recalculate the general ledger if there are audits, and then who do we go to for help if we get stuck with that. You want to go through the trial balance, at least the balance sheet accounts, and make sure you know and understand the balances, reconcile the bank statements, and make sure there are no old transactions open. So what am I talking about? Trial balance. I know I said I'm not going to run any reports, but I have to make sure that I do this correctly. Oh no. I think that's a sign, huh? Okay, now everybody pray. All right, good. That wasn't that long. Okay, I just need to remember to change the printer when I do this. So this is a trial balance. If you've never seen it before, this is a great report to run to review everything on the balance sheet. The balance sheet is your equity up. So everything from equity up is a balance sheet. Operating income down is your income statement. So we want to make sure that we know what the balance in each one of these accounts are. If you you are live in Sage this year, or even prior years, you should have nothing in startup AR. It should be 0. It should look like this. you should have no balance in startup AP. Should look like this. If you have a balance there, there's a problem. Reach out to your consultant who did your implementation and work it out with them to clear that balance up. It should be 0. Another thing that you definitely want to make sure of, and hopefully you guys are doing this every month, is when you're reconciling your bank accounts and your credit cards, right? There should be no old transactions. So say I'm reconciling May, why is January still open? Maybe it's a check that didn't clear, but by that time it's probably stale. I need to void it, reissue it. So you just want to make sure that you're reviewing outstanding transactions on a bank rec and outstanding transactions on a credit card rec. Your credit card rec should have none, unless it's, you know, for the next cycle. But it definitely should have none that are before the cycle ending that you're reconciling. Those should not be there. That means they're not valid. So clean that stuff up, getting prepared to close the year. Make sure your job costs tie to your income statement. How do we do that? You run an income statement, and you should be doing this every month, hopefully anyways. Remember to change your printer, Chantal. That's very important for you. Let's just do January to June here. I don't know, this is a sample company, so it may not match, but let's just cross our fingers. So direct expenses, these are a cost of goods sold, $1.8 million. I will run a job cost report. That should match my job cost report for the same period. 616. Some people, for some reason, cannot run this report. It closes Sage out. I don't know why, but it does. For the same period of time, I'm going to run it. You guys should be running it January through December, or hopefully, like I said, you're doing this monthly. This number here, $1.8 million, should match that income statement that we saw, $1.8 million. It's off a little bit. Do I want to spend time looking for the 8 or whatever it is? No, I don't. But you could. You can spend time looking for the change, but they should match. There should not be a substantial difference. Put that on your checklist to do monthly. That's important. You want to make sure your AR and AP subledgers tie to the balance sheet or your trial balance. You want to make sure all your invoices and payments and adjusting entries for the year are posted, especially before you're archiving. So if you have anything to write off, any AR invoices, AP, make sure that's done to close the year. To tie out your subledger to the balance sheet, you're going to run your balance sheet. I know I can set my default. Let's see if it works. We'll run this balance sheet for December. Yeah, well, that's running fast now. That's cool. And then we're going to run our aging, AP aging. You're going to do the same thing for your AR aging. I like report 56 on both sides, AR and AP. Up to you guys. Oh no, I'm in a roll and I didn't change my printer. Oh, good. Oh man, that was scary. So this is the last page of my AP aging, and it should match my balance sheet AP. $436,000 for 1840, $436,000 for 1840. Sage doesn't let those be out of balance typically because we can't post journal entries to ARAP, so it's usually very clean, very simple, not a lot of work to do there, but I have seen crazy things happen where it doesn't match. AR, subledger, and AP, so your AR, you're making sure that that matches. If you have service, the service module, you also want to tie out your service module. You want to run a trailing 12, look for variances, make corrections. This is just best practice, you know, being the accountant controller in your company. This is a report that I would run every month, 2/3/34 through the end of the year. I like to skip zero accounts, or maybe you want to leave zero accounts because something should be posted to an account that doesn't have anything in it and you want to identify it. Then you definitely would want to not skip zero accounts, so you can say, hey, we had this expense, where is it, right? Where did we post it otherwise? So this is just a trailing 12 month over month, very easy to recognize, especially down in overhead. Rent should be $1,900 a month, perfect. My AP is doing a great job, right? Just looking for variances and then double clicking to find out, why is there an anomaly? Does that make sense to us? Do we need to reclass it? If you perform these steps to close out your year, by the time your CPA or your tax accountant gets the information, it's a nice package. You've already done due diligence, things like that. You do need exclusive access to archive the general ledger and access the database administration tool, which is that tool on your server that I keep talking about. If you don't have access to that, you want to get it, the database administration tool. There's a new feature that you can now archive payroll and the general ledger at one time. Pretty cool, if you want to do that. You want to make sure the backup is current before you move on with archive. So you want to make sure that you've double checked the dates. You can check the dates of an archive, of a backup here where it says last backed up. If I saw no date here, like on my class database today, I'm not archiving yet. I'm going to back it up first. So it tells you when it was last backed up. Make sure it's current. Okay, so I'm going to pause and answer some questions. Is the 3-day class, or do you choose which day? I don't, let's see. You can reserve your spot. You can book individual days. That's what it looks like to me. Is that right, Pam? Can you answer, Pam? I don't really know. Pam knows, and she's on the call, so. Oh, you have to sign up for the whole entire series. You don't get to pick the day. That's what she says, I guess. Not a question, but an important note from Matt. I love important notes. Your general ledger will not match your trial balance unless you archive prior years. Your general ledger will not match your trial balance. I am not following that. For example, your 2025 general ledger will not match your 2025 trial balance unless you archive 2024. I have never heard of that. Never seen that before. I'm not sure what that means. Like if you ran a trial balance, you drilled into a number, you're saying the general ledger that is tied to the trial balance will not match that trial balance? That must be some kind of bug. I've never had that before. I've seen it where in one of my clients, actually they're on the call, that has happened to them before. Sage fixed it. There was a date issue, but also recomputing the balances will help with that. If you would care to elaborate more on that, Matt, I'm not exactly sure. I've never seen that before. Have another question come in. Once we started running payroll using pay groups, our job cost has not matched our income statement as of today. It's off $39. So that is a completely different class, but there definitely are steps you can take to drill into that. One important area of the system to check to ensure that you have your system set up correctly is 531. This is one of the major drivers of that inconsistency, Henrietta, where you have a employer-related payroll calculation, say union benefits, right? This would be tied to pay groups. If you don't have the job expense account in the direct expense range, that's going to cause a problem. If you have shop activated, the equipment module activated, you want to make sure this account is in the shop range. So on and so forth. Overhead in overhead range, and admin in admin range. Check your pay group benefits, your union benefits, and make sure that these are set correctly, because that is like the most number one that I've seen driver of inconsistent job costing information versus looking at our cost of goods sold. Tom says, sign up for the series. There will be extra classes if you do not need that day's stuff. And before our series, you want to make sure you're on the latest update. No, some comments from Matt. No, it's not a bug. It created a mystery for me and my CPA for some time this year. I literally have never seen that before, so I'm not even sure. This only has 2025 in it, but I'm going to check another database that has multiple years in it to see exactly what you're talking about. Yes, there are fees charged for the January webinars, Pam. Okay, yes, Matt, I definitely am interested in learning. I will contact you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Okay. So to advance to the new fiscal year, you have to be in exclusively. You're going to navigate to 1.6 and change the period. So make sure you're logged in exclusively. That's here. If you don't have this box, then you can't log in exclusively. Somebody else can on the team. Make sure that they're doing that. One, 6, change period. It has an asterisk next to it. That means it requires exclusive access. I cannot do this without being in exclusively. Exclusively means that you are the only one in Sage. Nobody else can be in. If you have a third-party application that's connected, SFO, HH2, something like that, you have to stop services. It's very simple. If you have access to your server, hopefully you do because you want it. So you'll just go to services, you'll find whatever it is that you need to stop. I swear we have HH2, IFS library, stop services, stop services, stop services on those, and then you can connect exclusively. Just make sure that when you're done, you restart the services. Pop it back open. I just leave it open usually and restart all of the ones that you stopped, and it's connected again. It's very simple. Then I can gain exclusive access. I can click change period. I did also want to mention one thing. Sometimes when you're going to access exclusively, you might get a pop-up window that says, Jamie Smith is logged into the system. Would you like to terminate their connection? That would be if you need to kick somebody out, right? If you need to kick somebody out, when you go to log in exclusively, if somebody's logged in just from Sage, you can't kick them out just there. You would have to log into this tool, the database administration tool again. Why you would want it? You're going to want to run a tune-up of the company, select your company, run tune-up. That's when you'll get the pop-up that says, Jamie Smith is logged in exclusively. Would you like to terminate access? You can say yes. Then Jamie, if is sitting at his or her desk, there's going to be a pop-up down there that says, you're going to be kicked out of Sage in 60 seconds. You better save your stuff and get out. Once you kick them out, then again, you can gain exclusive access. They can get back in. Just best practice to tell everybody to close out Sage when they leave for the day, then you don't have to do that. So we're going to click change period. Right now, I'm in June of 2025. I'm going to advance to July of 2025. If you are a company that does not change or close the accounting periods, fine, but you should still change the period. Why would you want to do that? Because it runs an audit behind the scenes. So when I change the period, it's going to run behind the scenes audit, tell me then if it's clean or not. At minimum, do that monthly so that you're made aware of those monthly issues quickly. And you're not waiting until December to finally advance from January to December, and you have a million audit errors that could be impacting your financial statements, things like that. So at minimum, change the period monthly. It's just best practice. I can skip all the way down to December, and I can click change period. The audit was completed successfully. If it was not completed successfully, it would tell me you have 1,000 audit errors. Would you like to review the report, just like in payroll? I would say yes, and I could then probably save the audit report for Sage help or ETHOSystems help. We'll want to know what those audit errors are, but I will show you some steps you can take, additional steps you can take to try to rectify it yourself. I do want to advance to 12. And it tells me that the first period of the next fiscal year is available, and it's also open. Period 2 through 12 of the next fiscal year will become available when I advance to period 1, and it requires a clean audit. Manage period availability. If you are a company that closes or wants to close, lock periods down because you report your financial statements externally, banks, bonding companies, make sure you're locking the periods. You can always reopen them, but best practice would be to leave them locked and make the change in the next period, because you don't want the financials changing. Cannot lock your default, so your default period is bold. But now if I pop over to 26, January is open. You could have January open right now. It's not hurting anything. You could do this anytime. I'm going to change the period to 1 of 2026. Now 2 through 12 are available. I would recommend, if you do that, you lock down the future periods, especially December. I've seen it so many times, because I don't know if you guys know this or not, but when you're putting a date into Sage, you only need to type in the month and the day, 12/21. I'm posting an entry 12/21. And Sage will put in the year. Well, if I've already advanced to 26, it's now going to post it 12/21/26, even though I'm still trying to close out December of 25. So if I lock it, nobody will accidentally do that, right? So I would recommend locking down December 2026 at minimum, but I personally would recommend locking them all down until we're ready to open them. Just to help minimize, errors in posting. And lock all of these and save. So that's what this all says. If there are any audit errors that can't be repaired by recalculating. So if you did get an audit error during that change of the period and it doesn't let you advance, or even if it does, you still want to correct those audit errors. So while you're in exclusively, click recalculate balances. Use this option to repair certain audit discrepancies. Best practice, probably, if I were doing it, I'd go back up your company first. Again, I need access to the server to do that, because if something happened during this recalculate, or I don't know, anything, I would just want to back it up and then I would recalculate. That's just me. I'm a little bit crazy with that. Recalculate balances, no audits found, no audit errors found, perfect. It cleaned them all up. If it didn't clean them up, it'll still say, well, you still have audit errors. You can look at the report, print it out, you can reach out to ETHOSystems at support@ethosystems.com or initiate a customer support via live chat to fix the errors. Because there are some errors that we just can't fix, like regular everyday users. Sam on our team can fix them, I believe, and Sage can fix them for you. And during this time of year, Sage gets really bogged down with support tickets. So you can always reach out to us and we can assist potentially quicker than Sage can. If you live chat with Sage, you just need to have, make sure you're an authorized user. You need to have your Sage version and your Sage ID. Again, you can find that under Home and Resources here. Your version number is going to be that top one, and then your ID number is in the middle. I'm going to pause for some questions. How do we gain access to the Sage admin tool to be able to run a company tune-up? The Sage admin tool that I've been accessing here is on your server. You may be able to ask your IT company to send, to create a shortcut on your own desktop to access that. I've seen that before. I'm not an IT person, or I don't know how that works. I can't do it for you for sure. But either get remote access to your server or be able to go access it if it's in the, on-prem, in a closet somewhere, make sure you can access this tool. It's really important. I've talked about it multiple times today. I think everybody, at least one person, one super user and a backup person should have access to this tool. This is on your server to kick people out. You run a tune-up the database, run tune-up. That's how you can kick people out. So Jessica, you need access to this, to the server and then to this tool. If you are an admin in Sage, you have administrative access. It doesn't mean you have access to this database administration tool. They'll have to set you up with system administrative rights to log into this tool. If your IT needs help, they can email support@ETHOSystems and we can help walk them through how to do that. You're welcome. So some other steps in preparing for year-end close. I don't know if anybody does this, but this is really good information. You want to make sure there are no unprinted checks or 4 zeros. In Sage, when we want to print a check, it's 4 zeros, right? And then we go print the check, and then it asks us if we want to assign a check number. We then replace it with the check number. So you can run this query into 5 to see if you have any 4-0 checks so that you can assign check numbers or remove them because they weren't really needed, something like that, if you did not catch it. So we're going to open up 2.5. If you guys don't use 2.5, you should. I love 2.5. Super cool. It's our find feature in Sage. So 5.2.1, we're going to do the cache accounts. Let me take this back to 25 now. So for all of our cache accounts, in the transaction number field, we're going to put 4 zeros. This transaction number field also allows you to put an invoice number, a check number, a payroll direct deposit number, anything that you're looking for. That's what this is, and then print preview, and it'll find that transaction. So we're finding 4 transactions, and then the credit amount, we want this greater or equal to a penny. And preview. I don't have any. Good. Did anybody have any? You want to make sure you don't have any. If you do have them, you're going to verify, is this a valid $0 or is this a valid check that should have a check number and then replace the 4 zeros with the check number? Or is it something that we meant to print that we never got around to printing and just not valid? Hopefully we found that in a bank reconciliation, but if we didn't, we can void that right in the ledger. Another thing that you're going to want to do is clean up your jobs. So the projects, if any jobs are going to be removed during an archive, if you guys are like, you know what, we have lots of information in our system, old jobs from 2019 or whatever years you have open, and you want to remove them, we need to make sure that we update the statuses. Jobs with outstanding AR or AP will not be removed. Sage doesn't do that. If you need to change several jobs, there's a way you can change them in bulk. You can also check to see what jobs will be removed during this process using the options remove, refuse, or close jobs to check and see if it even can be removed. So we'll go through that together. So projects 3.5. So they must have a status of a closed or refused in order to be removed during the archive process. Again, cannot have any current transactions in the current fiscal year or open AR, open AP. Underneath, update is one that you can do complete status. So we would double click on the jobs and then click insert selected, and then Sage will move all of these to complete. So you can move them in bulk for complete or in bulk for closed. Underneath options, remove, refused, closed jobs. I don't have any. Oh, wow. But this tells you that you can select the desired job status, and then you'll be able to see them. You can click on the job and click verify job removal, and it will tell you if it will remove the job or not. So if you have a big job, you just completed it in the last couple of years, and you want to say, if I archive, will this be able to be removed? You can check it. Don't remove it if it can. I wouldn't recommend that. You're going to remove it during your archive process. For those of you that have inventory, you want to make sure you have a clean audit. You should be running an audit after, at the end of every month and resolving any audit errors. Inventory audit. There's also repair. If we had any audit errors, first repair. If you can't fix them, then that's when you reach out to ETHOSystems support or open up a ticket with Sage. Another thing that we want to do is close the purchase orders, or you can turn on an auto close feature for the future purchase orders. That is an awesome tool, 661. If you are a company that issues purchase orders, that's amazing and great, love that. You definitely don't want to be closing them manually. So you can go to options, close automatically, in with admin rights. You have to be in with admin rights to do this. And you get to choose when the balance is 0 or less, or when all quantities are 0. And then it will close it automatically when whichever threshold has been reached based on what you check. Print reports and record counts after the year-end reconciliation, and this is for if we're going to be archiving the general ledger. These are the reports that I recommend that you run for verification purposes. Also, Sage, recommends those as well. And then you'll want to do a records count. What that means, just like in payroll, if I go to 1.3 file count, it tells you what the record count is. Just like in payroll, I would want to count the records. And I actually didn't even show you guys how to do that, so I will show you. You can do that in any window. If you're trying to see how many customers do I have, you can do that. File count. I don't have any in here. Oh, I do, 266, because I didn't close the year. So if I was to archive, I want to check that before I archive. Then I go run my archive process, which we'll cover in January. And then we want to check those record counts again in the archive database just to make sure all the records are there. Sage does not require you to close your books in order to move forward with the next year's transactions. Like I said, you can have 25 open, you can have 26 open, you can be posting back to 23 if you like. I mean, I don't recommend it for sure. Definitely not best practice. You don't want to do that, but you can. So any questions with regards to preparing to close a general ledger, working through the general ledger close? When I'm saying close, I just mean that you are finalizing December, and then you're going to close the December period when you're done with everything we just went through. You're close the December period when you're ready. That's what that means. If you are a company that needs to archive, and you definitely want to do all, perform all those steps, and then you'll go through the archive process. We're going to go through archiving in January and show everybody how to archive. If you have old records in there, like I said, you want to archive, let's get it done so it cleans up your system. Matt, ETHOSystems support has your inquiry about the trial balance and archiving, and we're going to be reaching out to you. Just FYI, I had that little message come in. No questions about the general ledger close. We're going to move on to, I did want to touch base on 1099 preparation. We're not going to go through today how to do it, but I want you to be prepared for the January sessions. Sometimes this process is lengthy. We have to reach out to other companies. We're on their time when they get around to it, type of thing. So I do want you to start preparing. Also, like I said, I have a lot of new users on the call that are new to Sage this year. I want to talk to you about how do we make sure that the year-to-date paid information is in the system and correct. So we're going to go through 1099 preparation if nobody has any questions about the general ledger. So we are moving on. I just had a question come in. Is there a GL close checklist? So in the community hub, or that last page of my PowerPoint presentation, I put the link there. There is, and I'm going to just talk about this right now before I move on to 1099s, because this has to do with the general ledger. Underneath the USA and Canada, there is a general ledger link. It's a ledger checklist. So pop it open, and it is actual checklist that Sage recommends. These are links. So recommend timeline of year-end tasks. It walks you through what we just went through with checkboxes. So yes, access that. Okay, you're welcome. 4.4 is our vendors. So just make sure that under the financial information tab, we have our federal tax ID number here and your 1099 type here. If your vendor is a sole proprietor or their tax ID number is a social security number, you'll want to put and make sure that the owner name is here. It says business owner's name required for 1099 if federal ID number is a social security number. So if you're new to Sage, just remember the bottom left corner in every field tells you what goes there. So make sure you're looking at that if you don't know. Sage does offer electronic, or Atrix and Sage, electronic 1099s. There is a consent form, just like for the W-2s, that you can print out and send to your vendors. If you have a vendor packet, it's nice to put that in the packet so they can consent to receive their 1099 electronically. Vendor 1099 forms for 5 electronic 1099 consent. Pop the window open. You're going to see a list, not of every vendor. You're going to see a list of vendors that have elected or that you have told the system that they get 1099s. Again, there's not a select all button. If anybody wants to put that in as a product enhancement request, that would be amazing, because I think we need select all and we can uncheck the ones we don't want. Anyways, you can select the ones you want and then you can run the report. It'll print the vendor information on the 1099 form for you to send to them. Once you get it back and you get the authorization, you can select that you've received it and put the email address in here that it needs to go to. All of this is saving time, getting our system in order, getting us into 2026, right? Electronic reporting, things like that. Paper is kind of archaic, but some people like to do paper. I'm not sure why, but it's very time consuming and costs the company a lot of money. Don't forget that you can attach the W-9 here. So if you have somebody helping you, have them attach it, then you have it visible right here. If you need to order 1099 forms because you do want to do it on paper, I put the solution ID, it's the same one as the W-2, into knowledge base for you to know what forms you have to buy. If you're new to Sage, and I implemented you, we have talked about this, but I'm just going to reiterate it. Under the vendor themselves, options, 1099 balance startup adjustment, you want to make sure that you put your go live date in here or the day before. It'll tell you what the current Sage balance is, but if you paid out of QuickBooks or Sage 50 or Sage 100 or whatever product you were in, you paid the vendor money, paid them, not invoiced, but paid them, you're going to put the startup amount that you paid them here as of your go live date. And then save it so that the correct balance is reported on their 1099. If you've been in the system and you have an adjustment that needs to be made, we gave them cash, I don't know, whatever the case may be, you can also use this tool. We are in the vendor options 1099 balance startup adjustment. There's not a process for closing out the calendar year for each vendor to reset the 1099 balances. Sage keeps track of that by check date. It's already doing that for you. If you want to see the balances year over year, you can go to 1099 balances and see what that is year over year. There is a report that you can run, pretty cool report. Which is the next slide after your final AP run of the year. Process and review vendors 1099 data, 41561. You can select by date or by 1099 type. So we're going to kind of walk through that just quickly. 415 1099 payments. So you can sort by vendor type if you want. If you do not know, you can double click into that field. So any of these fields, sometimes I talk to users and like, oh, I didn't know you could do that. So double click into the field and your list will pop open, or you can hit function F5 on your keyboard and pop the list open. Double click, I can select my vendor types for vendor type or 1099 type. Down here, it tells you the types. So say I'm just doing some work before my January class. I can do 0 is undetermined. I'm going to do equal to 0. I should have no vendors in 0. I do not recommend having vendors with a 0 undetermined. That means we don't know. We do not know if they get a 1099 or not. They should either get one in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, or they don't get one in 7. I really wouldn't recommend having anybody in 0. Again, that means I don't know. We don't know if we get them. We haven't heard from them. And it's a good way to say we don't know, right? So we have a couple in here that we don't know. And we paid them, but not enough. I did read somewhere, just so you know, payments in 2026, the new basis is $2,500, no longer $600. Verify that, but that's what I did here. Read it somewhere. The new ceiling is if it's over $2,500 for 2026. It's not going to affect 2025 payments, but going into 2026, just double check me, but that is what I read. This gives you the payments for that year. I actually like to, for you guys, run 411, and then at the bottom of 411, this one here, do equal to 0. This is going to give you all your vendors, so you can see these are the ones that I need to call on. These are my 0 undetermineds. This one is it says corporation or company, but I don't know. And I have a tax ID number that looks like a social security number. So I would think they would get one. Definitely want to be calling on them. I can double click on the vendor number from here, and I could update the financial information here or get their phone number, give them a call, and get that going. In preparation, 1099s are due January 31st. So you have some time, but with Christmas and year end and all of that, it goes quick. And really, even if you haven't paid them, like the $258.65, I still would want to classify them in the correct 1099 type. And actually, I looked it up. The deadline for vendors is 2/2/26 because 131 falls on a weekend, I think is what it was. So start with 411. Look at your vendors, make sure that everybody is where they need to be. It's report 61. You can run it blank or put in some filters. If you run it blank, it will give you, what you've paid people for 2025. These ones are no, this is an NEC, right? So you'll get an idea of, this looks like it's missing some numbers. It's 4 pages of information. So just eyeball that, make sure everybody's good to go. Okay, so we have some questions. Besides vendors who provide social security numbers as their tax ID number, who else do we need to include an owner name in the 44 vendor file? According to that field prompt in 44, required for 1099 if the federal ID number is a social security number. That's what it says. If it's a social security number, that you have to put the owner there. Sage is going to pull that information into your 1099. So that's why you need to do that. Otherwise, it's going to take the information from up here. Our best practice is no W-9, no payment. Oh, love that. Yep, forces them to provide it when we set them up. I think that's a great policy, Mary Ellen. That's awesome. That's awesome that you can enforce that, because some companies, the owner's like, I don't care, we'll get it later. I need to pay them now. So good for you that you have that authority there to make that call. That's awesome. That definitely does help us keep our records straight. So we're going to go through the 1099 process in our January classes as far as printing them, mailing them. What does the Atrix look like? Same with W-2s. How do we do that? If we're going to do it on paper, we're going to do it through Atrix. We're going to do all of that. Today's session was literally just to prepare everybody. for those classes or for year end, get you through to December 31st. Here are some resources. So for year end help, you can email us. If I am your consultant, I don't care if you email me directly. It's up to you. Year end procedure guide. You can find that under Home and Resources Product Documents Year End Guide. Home and Resources Product Documents Year End Guide. So pop that open. This can be printed. This is something that we already looked at, but this is the Year End Guide from Sage. Different than the checklists, right? And it's, I don't know, say 23 pages of data. Good resource for you. Sage Knowledge Base also takes you to Sage Year End Center. So does this link. And then obviously live chat. As everybody knows on the call, hopefully if you cannot call Sage, it's not an option to pick up the phone and call them. Please make sure your IT company knows you can't call them. There are people out there waiting for somebody to call Sage support and then taking your data and making you pay money for your data. So I've had it happen to a few clients. Not joking, they had to pay ransom to get their software back because they didn't know they couldn't call Sage. So I try to always tell everybody you can't call Sage, you can live chat with them using the button down here in Sage Live Chat. They do get really, really busy at your end, so just be aware of that. We are a resource for you, support at ETHOSystems.com if you need help, and then we have those January classes. Like I said, if you need to sign up, you want us to hold your hand through it, ETHOSystems.com, events and webinars. We have monthly webinars that are free to our users. So, you know, today's session, this is the lab, that is a paid for lab, all 3 days. But we do have monthly webinars, Q&A, bring your Q&A, that is free to users, February 3rd. I think it's the first or second Tuesday of the month, every month. Register for those, but just be aware of the classes that are coming out throughout the year. And I think that about covers it. Like I said, if you need to print your checklist, just click on this link, hold down the control key if you don't know, pop open the Community Hub and click on your shortcuts here for USA, click on them for Canada. It'll walk you through exactly how to do it. Also, Home and Resources Community Hub within Sage is the Community Hub. This is where it's going to let us know, for the announcements when there is the new version of Sage also. So be aware of the Community Hub, sign up, create an account. This is where you can ask questions about Sage issues you're having. Users answer, so do some consultants jump in here and answer questions for you as well. So another resource for you. That's all I have. I will finish up the last 5 minutes answering questions. Hopefully that helped today. I'll definitely print out the Sage year-end guide, my PowerPoint presentation. I mean, you should have all everything you need at your hands to close. If you need us to hold your hand, walk you through it. If you want to book a session with me, you want to book a session with Pam, or if whoever your consultant is, jump on their calendars. Mine is filling up to close the year with users. So, but we are going to have those January classes available as well. I'm going to answer questions. Let's see. I have a question about the overtime. We used travel time pay for most of the overtime. So it looks like we're going to have to manually adjust each pay record. Yeah, that's what it looks like to me, Tammy. If you didn't use the pay type overtime too, yeah, you're going to have to manually adjust it. That's what that looks like it's saying to me. So again, we'll get further direction when we get this update and we can figure things out. We just don't even have it. I wish we would have had it before today's call so we can give you guys more guidance, but we don't have it either. And neither did Sage themselves when they had their class. So that's kind of how things are moving. You're welcome, Cindy. Thank you for joining. When do we think we'll hear what ETHOSystems think about what Sage is providing? As soon as we get the update, we'll start working on further communication, but we'll get the update when you guys get the update. We're not special, unfortunately. So as soon as you guys get the update, if today or tomorrow, hopefully, you guys will, give us a few days, a little bit to dig in and figure it out, and then we will communicate with you guys for sure. January classes, we'll know what's going on then. How do we get your slides? Janet, in the meeting, there should be a handout section of the meeting. There is the PowerPoint presentation. Also, our marketing team will send out, if you registered, they're going to send out a copy of the recording with the PowerPoint presentation as well. Patrice, I need the update as soon as possible. I got to do payroll by Thursday this week. What? Patrice, they'll release it when they release it. Unfortunately, we do not know. There isn't an email to send to them, to anybody. Sage will, whenever they get it out, as soon as I will make a note, as soon as it comes out, I'll make sure that I shoot you an email. As soon as I know, you will be able to download that and install it. Also, if you guys are not getting regular communication from our marketing team and you want it, like these class notifications or like that, that monthly class that Pam has, Q&A, those classes, make sure that when you get the email with the recording, you email back and say, hey, I want to be added to the list, the communication list, so that, because I've had some users say, hey, I didn't even know about this class, but thanks for letting me know. Yeah. Well, if you guys don't have any questions, that is all I have today. I really appreciate everybody jumping on, and hopefully it helped a little bit. And if you need more assistance, book a session with us, email support@ETHOSystems, or jump into those series that we're going to have in January. Thanks everybody for joining.